Walters is a great place to watch the NBA Finals with friends. It's open late and located right across the street from Nationals Park.
Now the 2-2. Strike three called. Cavalli with a as he rings up strike three on Edwards. Caught him looking for strikeout number 6, and Cavalli fired up about it. Here's the pitch, and Hicks drives one to right deep. Wood going back to the warning track near the bullpen fence, and he can't get it. It's gone. It lands on the bullpen mound in right field. A home run for Liam Hicks, and a big insurance run from Miami. They lead it 5-3. He sets and he throws. Swing a drive deep right center. Back goes Wood to the warning track looking up, and there it goes. Another home run for the Marlins against Henry here in the 9th. That makes it 7-3. Stowers with a 2-run shot, his 4th of the year. And the Marlins have busted it open with 2 long balls.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Nationals Park, where the Nats on Monday evening had a chance to get to 3 games above 500. You know, that is the next goal for the Nats here in this surprisingly successful 2026 regular season so far. 3 games above 500, but the Nats unfortunately did not get to that mark. A 7-3 loss to the Miami Marlins at Nationals Park in game 1 of a 3-game series, dropping the Nats to 31-30, including just 1-3 against the Marlins. The Nats, as you may recall, lost 2 out of 3 games at the Marlins May 8th through the 10th. The Marlins are just 27-34, and this ended up being a frustrating loss on Monday evening, a game in which the Nats blew a 3-1 6th inning lead. We always enjoy hearing from you. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You know, Mark, it was a few seasons ago that the Nats were really bad, inexplicably, against the Marlins. I don't know if this season will end up being like that season. Hopefully not. But 1-3 so far against a Marlins team that really isn't good, but for whatever reason has done pretty well against the Nats over these 4 games.
And it doesn't match up with how they've done elsewhere. If you look at the last month, the Nats are 1-3 against the Marlins. They're 15-8 against everybody else they faced. And as we know, they've faced some pretty good competition here and beaten them, 3 straight playoff contenders that they just won series from. So it doesn't really match up, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, other than sometimes there's just that one team that for whatever reason you can't perform against. And that's been that way for a while now. It feels like, you're right, frustrating game because it was there for the taking. It felt like they were getting to Sandy Alcantara early, and then he found his groove and he settled in the rest of the way. And even with that, the Nats hand a lead to their bullpen in the 6th inning, and this felt more like an April bullpen kind of game from that group than a May bullpen game from them. It was tough to see, particularly Richard Lovelady and Cole Henry struggle the way they did, and that just kind of changed the whole narrative of this game.
It did. And, you know, I'm watching the game and I'm guessing I was not alone in feeling this way, but I was kind of waiting for the Nats offense to do something as the game went on. Early on, it looked like this might be a game in which the Nats did exceptionally well offensively. But the success that we were waiting for never quite happened. By the way, 2023 was the season in which the Nats really struggled against Miami. And it's not like that was a great Nats team, I understand that. But 2-11 against the Marlins in the 2023 regular season. Let us hope that nothing like that is what is happening this season. You know, it's a tricky deal right now doing this podcast because the Nats have done so well that I don't know if we need to shift our priorities when it comes to topics for post-game conversations because, you know, these last few seasons, it's been like, okay, in the bigger picture, what matters most in this game? But now that these games are really starting to matter from a standing standpoint, I'm almost like maybe we should focus more on like the actual result of the game and what happened. So I don't know, maybe at some point we need to have a show discussion about this. But I tell you, Cade Cavalli to me was the headline item from this game, just from a standpoint of he continues to pitch really well. The bullpen blew it, no doubt, and the offense did not have an especially good game. But this now is 5 consecutive outings in which Cavalli has done well. And what was so nice about this outing was He looked like he did not have it early on. Cavalli was laboring. Cavalli threw a ton of pitches over the first 2 innings, but he ended up righting himself, as we have seen him do, and he ended up with a final line of 2 runs in 5 innings with 6 strikeouts, and the second run that came off him came against him with him not even in the game. He gave up 5 hits, which were a double and 4 singles, issued 3 walks. He ended up throwing a lot of pitches, but also a lot of strikes. 5 innings, 89 pitches, 58 strikes, 31 balls, and 46 of the 89 pitches came over the first 2 innings. Cavalli in the top of the first allowed a run on a single and 3 walks, including a 2-out, bases loaded 5-pitch walk of Owen Casey for a 1-0 Marlins lead. Cavalli in that Marlins 1-run first through 24 pitches. Cavalli tossed a scoreless top of the second despite giving up 2 singles. He in that inning threw 22 pitches, so 46 pitches over the first 2 innings. But he ended up getting himself on track, ended up doing well the rest of the game, and ended up with, not a great performance, but, a very nice performance, all things considered. 2 runs, 5 innings, 6 strikeouts.
I think this was a really important start for him because, as you said, that first inning was pretty ugly, and it looked like he didn't have it at all. And it might be the kind of night that he doesn't get out of the 3rd or the 4th inning. As the pitch count went up, the command was way off. He'd only walked 3 batters his last 3 starts combined. And here he was issuing 3 walks to the first 6 hitters of the game. So very out of character for him. But to his credit, he figured it out. And he said it really was more mental than anything else. He felt like he was trying to attack the top of the zone, but was maybe trying to be a little too fine and hit the corners. And instead he decided, my stuff's good enough. Let me just go after them. And he did. And he retired 10 out of 11 batters at one point and completely turned that start around in his favor. So I agree. I think it's a really important, probably the most important thing that happened in this game in the bigger picture is that Cade Cavalli did figure some things out and make some in-game adjustments to turn what potentially was shaping up to be a really bad start into yet another good one. And this is a run that he's on now of, as you said, 5 very good starts in a row. So I think that, to me, is absolutely the most important thing. He figured something out along the way and was able to implement that adjustment and have success.
It's a cool deal. I mean, it feels like we are watching him grow up in front of our eyes. We are seeing him mature in front of our eyes, and we are seeing him become the pitcher who he was drafted to be. I mean, hopefully that's what we end up seeing, but it feels like we are in the process of seeing that. You look at where he's at now, 13 games, all starts. The ERA is at 3.62. The whip is still relatively high at 1.42, but the strikeouts per 9 innings also is high at 10.3, and that he can do these things, right? Because, look, at times it is rough with him. Like, he labors big time. He can lose his control, and you're like, man, how ugly is this going to get? And that he can sort of grab the outing by the shirt collar and say, oh, no, you don't, and you get back into where you should be. That he can do that, that shows real maturity. Not every pitcher can do that. We see some of these guys, they get inside their own heads, they lose it, and, they end up having, if not a blow-up outing, then an outing in which they only last for a few innings. He turned this outing into, like I said, a good outing, and I think that says a lot of good stuff about where he's at right now as a pitcher.
I've made the comparison to Mackenzie Gore a few times, and I think it's another good comparison here. How often did we see Gore lose it in the course of a start and not be able to get it back? And here was Cavalli showing that he could take that step that very often Gore could not. And I think that's an important thing. But we know that they both, when they're on, they can be outstanding, and just a matter of can they limit the number of times they don't have it, and can they make the in-game adjustments? Maybe every once in a while we saw Gore do that, but very often, long first inning, you knew, okay, he's not making it through 5 tonight. He's going to be knocked out early on. And so for Cavalli, this wasn't just him kind of like muddling his way through it and keeping the damage to a minimum. This was him actually flipping a switch and becoming really good. His command was excellent after that first inning or two. The stuff was really good. The results obviously were really good. He ends the 5th inning on back-to-back strikeouts of Kyle Stowers and Xavier Edwards. That last pitch to Edwards, just a beautiful curveball that caught the outer edge and completely froze Edwards. And he hops off the mound at that point thinking like, yes, this was a good start. And think about where it began 4 innings earlier. That's such an important first step for a guy who, I believe now we're talking 23 big league starts. He is still learning on the job, as we've discussed. These are adjustments that sometimes can take several years for a pitcher to make. at the big league level. The fact that we're already seeing it from him, I think bodes well for what he can become now.
I mean, if we're talking about the biggest individual bright spots for the Nats this season, James Wood, C.J. Abrams, Cade Cavalli, right? And there are others for sure. But if we're talking about a big three in terms of individual player bright spots for the Nats this season, Wood, Abrams, Cavalli, and not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, and because those are three who are supposed to be, key cogs to all this. It's been great what Curtis Mead has done. He was never really intended to be a big part of this, and he may turn into one, which would be fantastic. But you want your biggest name, young building blocks to live up to what they're supposed to be, and all three of those guys right now are. And I think we had a good sense that Wood and Abrams could do it because they've done it before. We just didn't know with Cavalli, after all these years, was he going to stay healthy? And then once he proved he was healthy, could he now be the pitcher he's supposed to be? And he's still got a ways to go. He's not there yet. But what we have seen, I think we've seen several encouraging signs along the way that make you believe he can continue to progress from here and really develop into the frontline starter that everybody has always hoped he would be.
Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
It's on the way home to House. Right-handed batter swings and clocks one deep to left center. Base going back onto the track. He can look up and watch it sail out of here. Brady House homers for his second straight time up. It's his second two-homer game of the homestand, and it's now 8-2 Syracuse.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW-NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
Pitch swung on, hit in the air, deep down the left field line, toward the corner. This is trouble, and this is gone. Goodbye. It's a pinch hit, two-run homer for Heriberto Hernandez to tie the game. On a 3-1 pitch from Richard Lovelady, quiets this crowd. It's now the Marlins 3 and the Nationals 3.
So Cade Cavalli was good in this game. The Nats bullpen, unfortunately, was not. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 5 runs in 4 innings. Richard Lovelady, he officially allowed 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning, came into the game in the top of the 6th with a runner on first, no outs, and the Nats up 3-1. And Lovelady, to the first batter he faced, gave up a pinch 2-run homer by Heriberto Hernandez to left field to tie the game at 3. The homer going a projected 406 feet per StatCast. And Lovelady then issued a hit by pitch of Jacob Marcy. Also gave up a 1-out opposite field RBI double by Connor Norby, although there was some bad luck on that double. That was like a cue shot. The ball went off what looked like the top of the infield dirt and then into right field territory, but put the Marlins up 4-3. Now, Paxton Schultz was really good. He tossed 2 1/3 perfect innings, 2 strikeouts, a mere 30 pitches over his 2 1/3 perfect innings, 21 strikes versus 9 balls. That might have been the best that we've seen Paxton Schultz look. But Cole Henry really struggled. He allowed 3 runs in 1 inning, top of the 9th, allowed 3 runs, gave up 2 homers, gave up a 1-out first pitch homer by Liam Hicks to right field to put the Marlins up 5-3, gave up a 1-out 2-run homer by Kyle Stowers to right field on a 1-2 pitch to put the Marlins up 7-3. Henry also gave up a single and issued a walk, did record 2 strikeouts, but all of this added up to a 32-pitch 9th inning for Cole Henry. So Paxton Schultz, really good, but Richard Lovelady and Cole Henry, not so much. A lot of conversation during Nats manager Blake Buter's postgame press conference about what happened with Lovelady.
So I think that's just kind of the story of the game. If we're going to break it down and talk about like this one particular game and how it went, it's that top of the 6th. Obviously, he lets Cavalli come back out to start the 6th. He was at 86 pitches at the end of 5, so no problem putting him back out there. But if you looked at the lineup, you knew that after the first batter, Leo Jimenez, you had 3 lefties coming up. So I was not surprised in the least, and Lovelady was already warming up. I was not surprised in the least that Cavalli was removed. I think regardless of how he fared against that first batter, he was coming out of the game no matter what. Now, the interesting part of this is that the Marlins immediately counter with a right-handed pinch hitter in Hernandez. And Blake Buterin, I appreciated the detail that he gave in his answer to all this. He said he pretty much knew they were going to do that. You bring in a lefty there, you know they're going to pinch hit with a righty.
We only had 2 left-handers out of the pen, of course, tonight. Wanted to be strategic with where to use them. Thought the pocket of the 3 in a row right there, starting with Casey, was where we wanted to use Lovelady. And, he forced their hand to pinch hit early in the 6th inning.
And so he wasn't caught flat-footed. This wasn't Clayton McCullough, out managing Blake Butera necessarily. He had a hunch that was going to be the case. And as he said, he would rather not try to leave Cavalli out there to now have to face the lefty, because you're not going to pinch hit if Cavalli stays in the game. So he's now got to face 3 straight lefties. His pitch count is getting up over 90 at that point in the game. He didn't think that had a great chance of success. And so he goes to Lovelady. Now, right now, Lovelady's basically their only matchup lefty they have in the bullpen. PJ Poulin, remember, is down at AAA. Can't be called back up yet. He's going to have to be down a while longer, the 15-day minimum, unless somebody gets hurt and he can replace them. And then Andrew Alvarez is now in the rotation, and Mitchell Parker is really more of a long man. So Lovelady was basically the only lefty he could call upon for any kind of matchup purposes late in this game, and he decided to do it right there. He feels like, and as we've discussed, Lovelady has been better against righties than lefties, so he wasn't worried about the pinch hitter. What happened? Lovelady fell behind in the count, 3-1. He couldn't locate his fastball. So he comes in on 3-1 with a cutter, and it got hammered. A terrible pitch, as Lovelady described it himself.
It was a terrible pitch. His cutter trying to land back door to cutter, trying to steal a strike. Probably something easier to go earlier, but you don't land a 4-seam 3 times out of 4 pitches. It's kind of hard you put yourself in a spot where you can't be fully effective.
And the wheels just fell off after that. So I think it's a case where you can certainly question the managing and the strategy there, but he gave his explanation for it. I understand the logic behind it. And if Richard Lovelady is just able to do his job and especially get ahead in the count and not be pitching from behind as he was, it may have been a different result.
Yeah, and the fact that Lovelady has had these reverse splits this season led me to believe, okay, this actually might work out in the Nats' favor, the fact that McCullough pinch hit with a right-handed batter in Hernandez, but the result was not favorable to Richard Lovelady or to the Nats. It's funny, as well as the Nats have done lately, and clearly the Nats have done well, and of course, so much of the recent success has been predicated on improved pitching. The Nats do still have one of the worst team ERAs in MLB at 4.63. And I know some of that is just how bad the pitching was earlier in the season. But even now, with the improved pitching, there are games in which the pitching is bad. And we are seeing, especially with some of these relievers, like when they don't have it, they really don't have it. And there very much is like a Jekyll and Hyde characteristic to this bullpen right now, where it feels like a guy is either outstanding, like we saw with Paxton Schultz in this game, or the guy really struggles, like we saw with Richard Lovelady and Cole Henry in this game. And there's been a lot of that lately. If you go through like game by game, you'll see a reliever do exceptionally well, but then even in the same game, you might see a guy who just is like completely lost out there. And that's an issue right now with this bullpen.
Right. It's not like somebody comes in and puts a couple of guys on base, but then pitches his way out of it. No, once he gets into trouble, he often is not able to get out of it, or he comes in and is lights out and was so efficient like Schultz was that they were able just to let him keep going. And, I'm sure people are wondering why not just bring him back for the 9th. That's pushing it at that point. 2 1/3. He's not a true long man. You're not going to mess around with that. With Cole Henry, this is getting to be a little bit worrisome. He missed 6 weeks with the shoulder injury. They gave him time on rehab. He made 5 rehab appearances at AAA, was pretty good in all but I think one of them. So they took their time. They called him back up. He went 2 innings in his first game back, which I was surprised at. Threw a lot of pitches in that one, then had several days off, and has now come back in this one and really did not look right. 2 home runs in the span of 3 batters, a walk. As you said, 32 pitches in 1 inning. You don't want to have to go to anybody else. So he's stuck out there. He's going to have to finish that inning unless it just gets to be ridiculous. I know we went into spring training and even into the season thinking like he might be one of the key back-end relievers. I don't think this front office and this coaching staff views him that way. I think even going into the year, they weren't viewing him that way. And certainly right now, there are plenty of others who have stepped up beyond him. I think he's, if not the last man, close to the last man at the bottom of the totem pole. And if there's a move to be made here in the next few days, if they think that something is necessary, he's probably going to be close to the first one on the chopping block, which is unfortunate because we've seen when he's good, the stuff is really good and he has a chance to be successful. But right now, he just hasn't looked right.
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is it's 10 innings at the major league level here. So, maybe you could use the small sample size argument, but they have been a rough 10 innings. There's no doubt about that. And it really is a shame because you think big picture. Cole Henry a few years ago was a promising starting pitching prospect, underwent the TOS procedure, and, that very clearly altered his career. Now he's a reliever, still could have a successful major league career, but right now, as we just discussed, not doing so well.
Abrams, not a big lead at first. The 2-2. Swing a fly ball, left field, well struck. Way back it goes to the warning track, to the wall. It's gone! Jacob Young is homered again. The Nationals take the lead 2-1 on Jacob Young's 8th long ball here in 2026. He had the power stroke in May. He homers on June 1st. A 2-run shot against Sandy Alcantara.
The Nats offense, which of course has been exceptional, did end up having an off game. Just 3 runs, just 7 hits, which were a home run and 6 singles. Just 1 walk, 1 for 2 with runners in scoring position. The Marlins starting pitcher was a familiar face, Sandy Alcantara. Now, the Nats scored 2 runs in the bottom of the second and a run in the bottom of the third. It looked like the Nats might do well against Alcantara, but he ended up doing well. 3 runs, 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, no walks. Although the Nats did homer, as I mentioned, and the homer was by Jacob Young. He homered again. Young in the Nats' 2-run second, a went-out 2-run homer to left field for a 2-1 Nats lead, despite having been down in the count at 1.12. So Jacob Young now is at 8 home runs off entering this season with 5 career regular season home runs. Jacob Young is tied for 3rd on the Nats in homers. James Wood 1, C.J. Abrams 2, and Curtis Mead and Jacob Young tied for 3. We talked about, the best individual player situations for the Nats so far this season. Is there anything more shocking about the Nats this season regarding any individual player than the home run surge of Jacob Young? This is remarkable.
Well, as I tweeted after that home run, if I had told you on opening day that on June 1st, Jacob Young would hit his 8th homer of the season and it would come off Sandy Alcantara, there isn't a person in the world that would have predicted that to be the case. It really has been remarkable. And it's mostly over the last month or so that he's done it. It's not like he got off to a hot start. This has really been much more recent. But the more that he does it, the more it looks legitimate. Now, his overall offensive numbers still aren't anything great. But he is swinging harder, as we know. And when he does connect, he's making really good contact. Almost all these have been pulled to left field, and most of them have been like no doubters. It's not like he's barely scraping the wall with these. So you'd love to have a little more solid contact from him. But short of that, when he is making contact, it's really loud contact. He's hitting the ball in the air, using his natural power abilities, and he's making the most of it. And that's been such a welcome relief for this team. I mean, when Jacob Young is consistently batting like 6th, as he was in this game, for several years now, you would have said that's a problem. This is not a guy who should be hitting that high in the lineup, and maybe he still shouldn't be. But you feel a lot better about it now than you did before because you know that there is a legit threat of him at the plate that just was not there in the past.
It is an odd deal, though, because as you said, his overall offensive numbers actually aren't good. His OPS is 681, the exact same as Brady House, who's not even at the major league level right now. House is at AAA Rochester. House's OPS at the major league level this season, 681. That's Jacob Young's. He's slugging under 400, even with all the home runs. So, yeah, like he really is almost like a one-trick pony. But, it's better than being a zero-trick pony. Like, his offensive profile really was an issue these last last few years. If he can at least give you some power, you combine that with the great defense and the very good base running, and okay, you can stomach playing him every day because he's not an automatic out, and at the very least, he can give you some pop, and he's clearly doing that right now.
They've never needed him to be a great offensive player. They've just needed him to be some kind of offensive player who can contribute. And then he makes his mark, of course, in center field with everything that he does for them out there. So they will happily take this. Yeah, you'd love for it to be even better. But if you're going to be good at one thing offensively, this is a pretty good thing to be good at. And it's making up for the other stuff. They will happily take that.
So the Nats got the home run from Jacob Young, but that was about it for the Nats offensively in this game. Just 6 singles and a walk beyond the Jacob Young home run. Curtis Mead did have a couple of hits. He was the Nats starting third baseman and number 3 batter. 2 for 4, RBI single and another single. Mead in the Nats 1-run third, 2-out RBI single to left field to put the Nats up 3-1. But Mead got thrown out in his attempt to advance to second base.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Wood off third. The pitch to Mead. Swung on a line drive toward the left field line. It's down for the base hit. Wood scores. Mead's trying for second. The throw and the tag. He's going to be out. It's going to end the inning.
And speaking of outs on the base paths, Nasim Nuñez, he was the Nats starting second baseman and number 9 batter, 1 for 2 with a single, but he got thrown out in an attempted steal of second base. Nuñez, bottom of the 5th, 2-out single to center field on a 1-2 pitch. But Nuñez, with James Wood batting, got thrown out in an attempted steal of second base for the 3rd out. Now, this is tricky because Nuñez, of course, has the great speed. Overall has been so good on stolen bases, 22 for 25, even with that caught stealing. But, this is a no-no. You can't get thrown out on an attempted steal with the team's best hitter, James Wood, hitting. And yet that's what happened in that spot.
This felt like you could see this whole thing, kind of like a train wreck you could see coming from a mile away. And here's the key to it. Sandy Alcantara throws 2 pickoff attempts, doesn't get them. Well, we know the rules now in Major League Baseball. You can't go a 3rd time. If you do, you have to get him out or else it's a balk and he automatically goes to first. But it almost felt like Alcantara and the Marlins were just toying with Nasim Nuñez and saying, okay, we're going to pick over there twice. We can't do it again. We know you're going to try to steal second now. And what happened, it was a high and away fastball. It gave Joe Mack, who has a great arm, perfect lane and opportunity to throw him out, which he did. And here's the thing. Even if Nuñez is safe at second, it's 2 outs, man on second, James Wood at the plate. What are they going to do? They're going to walk James Wood. They're not going to pitch to him with first base open and 2 outs. So, yeah, you take your chances with Luis Garcia after that, and maybe Garcia comes through and makes them pay for it. But all things considered, give me James Wood swinging the bat with 2 outs and a runner on first, as opposed to Luis Garcia swinging the bat with 2 outs and runners on first and second. This wasn't the team telling Nuñez to go. It was really a reflection of the 2 pickoffs. And then it's like, okay, we trust you enough. If you can get a good jump, go, try to steal that base. And as you said, the numbers, he's been outstanding this year at that. But I thought he got a little greedy and a little too predictable. And you don't have to go on that first pitch, which is what he did. And it felt like the Marlins knew that was coming. It wasn't a true pitch out, but it was like as close as you're going to get to one. And it just felt like they were toying with him that whole time so they could do exactly what they did to him.
And after the play, Nuñez is smiling, and I don't know, I can never be mad at him. He always is having so much fun. He seems so likable, Like, on the one hand, you're furious about him making the out in that spot. And the other hand, you just want to give him a big hug and say, oh, you knucklehead, just do better next time. He's got a very likable personality. But the Nats end up not doing much offensively in this game, end up losing 7-3. Game 2 for the Nats against the Marlins at Nationals Park, Tuesday evening at 6:45. The Nats have listed Miles Mikolas as their probable starting pitcher for the game. While we are talking Nats starting pitching, Jake Irvin, he is on the 15-day injured list with a right shoulder strain. He was placed on the 15-day IL on May 24th. We were told at the time this should not be a lengthy stay on the 15-day IL and that he was to begin throwing in a few days. Well, we find out on Monday he still has not started throwing. That seems concerning. What can you tell us about what's happening here?
It's certainly not moving along at a pace that they thought that it would. Now, that said, the exercise that he's doing, he has been encouraged by it, has told them that the shoulder feels better, but they have not cleared him to throw yet. And initially they said 2 days off and then start throwing. And the idea was, well, if he could do that, then he might really be back within 15 days. At this point, even if everything goes exactly how you hope it would, and it may still do that, that seems really unlikely that he'd be back, what we're now talking about, like within a week or so, because if you haven't begun throwing and you kind of have to start that up again, they may need to ramp him up again. And that might mean a rehab start or simulated game, live BP, whatever that might be. And these things take time. So I don't think they're like overly concerned here, but it's certainly not moving as quickly as they initially thought it might. And it's a good reminder to us and to everybody else to always be careful when they give you timelines. This is why generally they don't give you timelines on injury recovery, because it's very hard to pinpoint it sometimes. And in this case, it looks like they may have publicly said he was going to be back sooner than it turns out he's going to be back.
The Nats, in listing the probable starters for this series, did include Andrew Alvarez. He's projected to be the starting pitcher for game number 3. So conceivably here, I mean, and I guess this will depend on how Alvarez does moving forward, but conceivably here, he could be in the rotation for, more than just, say, 2 or 3 turns. Like, this could be a few weeks, especially if Irvin does have to go on a minor league rehab assignment.
Yeah, no, he's certainly being given the opportunity, and I would think in this case we're not going to see an opener. The Marlins are more left-handed heavy, so it would make sense for Alvarez to start that game. He faced them last September, if I remember right, and did well against them. This is his opportunity. And, if it doesn't go well, they have some other options they could look at down at AAA. But I think what he has done so far up here, he's earned the right now to show them, can he do it or not? I think it's a good matchup for him. I want to see how he does Wednesday in that series finale. And if it goes well, I would expect to see him again at least once or twice more after that.
And Dylan Cruz not in the starting lineups for the last 2 games off the hit by pitch the other day, but did pinch run on Monday evening. And I mean, it looks like he's okay. And in fact, should start in game 2 of the series. Is that right?
Yeah, he should be in the lineup. He did all the pregame stuff on Monday, felt fine, no issues, took BP. Probably could have played, but I think Blake Gutierrez said, let's be 100% sure. And if you're going to come back to face anybody, maybe Sandy Alcantara isn't the guy to come back to face. Let's give you one more day.
He'll be available off the bench to do everything, and then should be good to go tomorrow.
But he was available. They used him pinch running, but I think there was probably a scenario where if the Marlins had a lefty reliever in the game, Cruz could have come up to bat against him, but I would fully expect him to be in the lineup on Tuesday night.
You on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. Positive reviews are greatly appreciated. These things help us out a lot. We thank you very much for doing them. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Cavalli into the windup, and here's the 2-2. Swing and a miss at another fastball again. 99 miles an hour, and there's one out.